It is with a shattered heart that we gather today, not as fans, not as journalists, but as human beings who once found refuge, rebellion, and raw beauty in the sound of Babyshambles. The world is just a little dimmer tonight because Patrick Walden, the soul-soaked guitarist whose riffs echoed like poetry and whose presence could never be imitated, has died at the age of 46. There are few names in the 2000s indie scene that conjure such visceral emotion. Fewer still who could bend 6 strings into a confession, a howl, a hymn. Patrick was not just the guitarist of Babyshambles, he was a flame flickering between genius and chaos, and for those of us who were watching, it was impossible to look away. The news came late Friday, shared in a trembling, heartbreaking post by the band on their official Facebook page. "We feel very fortunate to have known, loved and worked with him," it read. "We kindly ask for respect and privacy during these difficult times. Peter, Drew, Mick, Adam." No cause of death was confirmed. And perhaps that detail is not what matters most now. What matters is the echo he leaves behind, vibrating in amps long unplugged, in stages now darkened, in memories soaked with distortion, sweat, and the scent of Camden nights. Patrick Walden wasn't polished. He didn't wear fame like a tailored suit. He wore it like an old coat, tattered and flapping in the wind, refusing to change, refusing to bend, refusing to compromise what he brought to the table. And what he brought was electric. He first joined Pete Doherty, the iconic and troubled frontman, in the earliest stages of Babyshambles, a band born from the ashes of the Libertines, carrying the weight of expectation and the burden of self-destruction. In Patrick, Pete found not just a guitarist, but a sonic soulmate, someone who could understand the jagged rhythm of addiction, the poetry of ruin, the melody of madness. Together with bassist Drew McConnell and drummer Gemma Clark, they created a sound that was as fragile as it was furious. They weren't trying to be perfect. They were trying to be real. Patrick's guitar work on Down in Albion remains one of the most haunting and ferocious performances of that decade. Listen to Killamangiro. Listen to Pipe Down. Listen to the way his guitar doesn't just accompany the lyrics, it argues with them, dances around them, dares them to step further into the abyss. He was not background. He was not decoration. He was a weapon. And yet, offstage, Patrick battled his demons, ones that many artists know too well. There were stints in and out of the band. Times he disappeared. Times he returned. Times we all hoped he would stay longer. But even in absence, his fingerprints remained on the music. His style was unmistakable, raw, improvisational, drenched in emotion. There was a punk edge, yes, but also a jazzman's soul. He never seemed to follow a script, only feeling. People will talk about his musical influence, and they should. Guitarists across the UK, whether in garages or on tour buses, owe something to Walden. But beyond the music, those who knew him will remember the quiet moments, the offhand jokes, the wild flashes of brilliance that came when you least expected them. His bandmates, Pete, Drew, Mick, Adam, knew that brilliance intimately. Their tribute was brief, but that brevity carried the weight of oceans. You don't need many words when grief is genuine. Sometimes, all you can say is, "We loved him." And we did. Patrick's story was one of light and shadow. It was never going to be straightforward. He didn't live for applause or headlines. He lived for moments, those rare, electrified seconds when music and truth collided. And in those moments, he gave everything. He gave us more than guitar parts. He gave us honesty. He gave us pain. He gave us poetry in a language that only distortion pedals understand. His death is not just the end of a life, it's the closing of a chapter in British rock history. A reminder of how delicate genius can be, and how easily it slips through our fingers. In Camden, the streets will feel quieter now. In smoky pubs where Babyshambles once roared, there will be a strange silence, a silence that somehow still hums with feedback and memory. In every record shop where Down in Albion still sits, there will be new meaning behind those songs. They will no longer just be relics of a wild past, but tributes to a man who burned brightly, if not long enough. We will remember Patrick not for perfection, but for passion. Not for fame, but for fire. Not for what he could have been, but for what he was, when he was right there, in that fleeting, ferocious moment when everything clicked and the music soared. May the amps always hum for you, Patrick. May the chords you struck continue to ring out long after the final encore. You were never just a guitarist. You were lightning. Rest easy, legend. You'll never be forgotten.